Last Tuesday night, or a night exactly like it, you lay in the dark, running it back. Not because it was catastrophic, because it wasn't. It was small, one wrong call, one moment where you weren't quite the person you knew you could be, and hours later, you're still in the courtroom, still on trial. We tell people, stop being so hard on yourself, like that's an instruction someone can follow. Nobody explains why you can't. What's actually happening in there? Marcus Aurelius, commander of the largest army in the Western world, understood this. He wrote about it privately, at night, in a journal he never meant anyone to read. What did he write? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly, and the specific line he wrote to himself about the version of him that fell short. I think it'll change something for you. He kept a private journal every night he was able for 19 years, written in Greek, his second language, so fewer people around him could read it. No title, no intended reader. Starts mid-thought, like someone just picked it up off a desk. What he wrote in it is not what you'd expect. He didn't write about his victories. He wrote about the times he was impatient, the times he laughed at the wrong moment, the times he acted from pride and knew it while it was happening. This is not a monument. It is a record of a man refusing daily to become what power usually makes people. And there's one thing about this journal that almost no one knows. The title, Meditations. Marcus Aurelius didn't give it that name. A Byzantine scholar added it 1,000 years after his death. The manuscript has no title. Scholars think he wrote most of it on the Danube frontier during the longest war of his reign, sometimes while running a fever. The most powerful man in the world, writing to himself about patience from a military tent. That gap between what he was managing and what he was asking of himself is what makes this unlike anything else. It is not philosophy. It is a man alone, trying not to lose himself. Here's what he actually wrote. Meditations. Book 2. He writes, begin the morning by saying to thyself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. This is a practice called premeditatio malorum. Anticipate what's hard so it can't knock you sideways. But the sentence that comes right after, the one nobody ever quotes, that's the one. He writes, I have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. Read that again. He is not talking about his enemies. He is talking about himself, the version of him that lost his temper, that acted from vanity. That person, same nature. Not a different broken Marcus, the same one, trying. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. I think he was, maybe more fundamentally than anything else, talking about himself, the version of him that fell short. The Stoics get reduced to this image of someone who just endures, feels nothing. That is not what he was doing. He was recognizing that the part of him that failed wasn't a different broken Marcus. Same one, same nature. You are not uniquely broken. You are characteristically human. And that is not letting yourself off the hook. Guilt is letting yourself off the hook. Guilt says you've paid. Recognition says, this is what I'm working with. Now what? There was a philosopher Marcus Aurelius studied obsessively, a man named Epictetus. His owner once twisted his leg just to see if he'd react. Epictetus said, if you continue, you will break it. He continued, it broke. Epictetus said, did I not tell you? He had a specific name for what happens inside you after a mistake, not the mistake, the story you attach to it immediately after. I am bad. I always do this. These aren't observations. They're verdicts. There is a gap. between what happens and what you decide it means. In that gap, you have more choice than you've ever used. The self-punishment you run after a mistake is not the event. It is a judgment you formed about it. And Seneca, writing at the end of his life, knowing he had months left, found a way to use that gap every single night. I want to ask you something before we go on. Think of the last judgment you handed down on yourself. Was it a judgment or was it just a fact? Drop your answer below. I read everyone. Seneca was 68, knew he was dying, and described this practice in letters he wrote to his student every single day until the end. He called it the Evening Review. 3 questions every night. 1. What did I do well today? 2. Where did I fall short? 3. What will I do differently? No punishment, no verdict. An honest look. The Pythagoreans were using this same practice 500 years before Seneca. Marcus Aurelius kept it every night on the Danube. Cognitive behavioral therapy independently discovered it in the 1970s and gave it a clinical name. 2,500 years. Same 3 questions. Because guilt is a room with no door, the Evening Review is the door. Marcus Aurelius died in 180 in Vindobona, present-day Vienna, on a military campaign, far from Rome. He was 58. The Meditations was never published. What survived was copied once, in the 10th century, by a Byzantine monk who found it in a military archive and decided it was worth keeping. If that monk hadn't made that copy, we don't have this conversation. Tonight, 3 questions. Not a performance. Just what Seneca called the honest look. You have the same night Marcus had. Use it the same way. The next video is about mindfulness, specifically about what the original Theravada Buddhist practice of sati actually is, and how far it's drifted from what the monks who invented it were actually doing. I'll see you there.